It will go on for like about an hour or thereabouts. We'll be giving you guys the updates from the Iranian nuclear talks, from the tariff war between America and China, and the role of the Europeans. The Europeans, made a threat earlier and backed out of it. Yeah, the funny guys, they are the Europeans. They've been making this threat, but they've been Trump have put them in their place and they stepped down their threats. So the European Union initially wanted to put retaliatory tariffs on the United States, but they are having these back channel conversations where they will no longer do that. So these are some of the conversations we'll be having today. So if you're just joining the live stream, you're welcome. Contribute to the live goal if you can. Let's tap and share and amplify the voices of the global south and the downtrodden and the oppressed. This is what my channel is about. I host these live streams regularly and I post videos related particularly to the global south. Our experience over the past 100 years have not been palatable, from Africa to Western Asia, or what they call the Middle East, to South Asia, to the Latin America. America continues to play a central and pivotal role in the stabilization of the global south. From what they did in Chile with Augusto Pinochet and the removal of Salvador Allende to backing militias, General Rios Montt, they backed in one of the Latin American countries. Their constant intervention in Haiti, let's not forget that. And even back in the Duvaliers, it goes back in time to the Duvaliers when Papa Doc Duvalier was at the height of his powers and they set up the Tonton Macoute in Haiti. So the US have been everywhere. So this is not just me saying it and just hyper focusing on the Middle East. This is the mistake a lot of people make. They're like, okay, this guy's from Africa. He claims to be a Christian. That's what some people say. So why are you so interested in what is affecting the Arabs and Muslims? So to me, it's not about religion. It's about my background as an African, as a student of politics and geopolitics and history. I see the persistent intervention of the West, of the Europeans in Africa, and particularly in the global South. I want to say that clearly. The persistent intervention of the Europeans. And when I talk about the Europeans, I don't just mean the Europeans in Europe. The powers in the United States are, these guys are of European descent. These are Europeans. They're the guys in power in America. These are the same people that went to the Americas, that went to America, drove out the natives, set up their own government, call this, democracy or whatever they want to talk about it, are now deporting the natives or the indigenous people of that whole area. So if somebody's from Mexico, in quotes, which is now a new concept of modern states, which goes back to the Treaty of Westphalia, the concept or the idea of the modern nation state is new. We are not used to it, and like I said, you can trace it back to the evolution of the constitution. You go back to the state of nation. This is a segue or a background for you guys to understand why some of my videos or some of my content tend to be, adversarial to the position of the West, if you like. Like, oh, why do you always talk about the West? Why are you always antagonistic towards the West? It's not me. It is the multinationals of the West, like Total Energies, like Chevron from the United States, British Petroleum, Shell from Holland, and all these companies in Africa looting and pillaging Africa, taking the resources back to Europe to develop beautiful cities like Amsterdam and London and so on and so forth. And if you go to Miami, there's no road, there's no electricity, there's no water. People can barely afford 3 square meals a day. And it's the same thing in Kano and in Accra, in Ghana, and so on and so forth. So why should we as Africans sit back and watch them to do it? Okay? And I understand some people try to take some position and say, well, in the Sahel, people say, well, the Fulanis, the Tubu, the Tuareg, are not like us. And they make all of this very tribalistic and they say, oh, it is because the Arabs and the Muslims are doing that, then the West have the right to. No, that's not the point. You have to be careful what you wish for. These are the same people, Europeans per se, that enslaved you, beat you up, you know, forced you to work on their farms during the week, and on Sunday gave you the Bible at gunpoint and forced you to read it. So you were enslaved to them during the week, and on Sunday you were enslaved to them as well. These are the same Western Europeans, from the Portuguese to the British. with what Belgium did in Congo as well, with the rubber rush or whatever they wanted to get from Congo. They were chopping off the hand of people that were not able to make their quota for rubber. Okay, so this is what you guys need to understand. Now let's get to the conversation of today. Today I intend to talk about more of geopolitical um, insights, and we're going to look at uh, three major topics: the tariff war, which is the first one. The second one, we're going to look at the negotiations between Iran and Israel and the United States of America, albeit indirect talks going on in Oman. And lastly, the economic impact of this tariff war, that America is waging on the rest of the world. It's not just waging the war on China. America is not just waging the war on Russia. America is not just waging the war against people that disagree with them, that refuse to acquiesce and conform to their tenets and their dictates. And we are going to look at the updates. If you look at the update from the major news outlets, Trump recognizes tariff transition difficulty as the White House says China rate is 145%. So just yesterday, the guy is toiling with the stock market. Yesterday, he said, oh, well, there will be a temporary pause or truce on the tariff war. And today, he jacked it up from 100 and I think 25% to 145%. And this is the level of volatility he's creating around the market. And I believe that this kind of behavior, erratic and unstable behavior, is shaking up the stock market. It is shaking up the world economy. And this is classical Trump. This is what he intends to do. This is his his idea, or this is his nature. This is what he intends to achieve by checking up the market. So let's look at the details of this. So the trade war between Washington and Beijing deepens as the White House says its tariff rate is on most Chinese goods is 145%. Now, prior to that, he announced that there will be 125 levy on imports from China, and shortly after that, he said that the Chinese government and their emissaries, have reached out to the White House and they say they are interested in negotiations, that there might be some sort of truce, or that there might be some sort of ceasefire, if you like, from the tariff war. And by the way, the Europeans are dumbfounded. It's more or less like a shock and awe to them. They were talking tough at the beginning, but they have decided to leave the center stage to allow, America and China to fight it out. These are the same Europeans that wanted to look. If you want to be with the big boys, you have to put up the big boy pants. The Europeans are talking tough, but when the going gets tough, they run away. I saw the statement from Ursula von der Leyen, who is the president of the European Commission or something like that, or the European Council. One of the highest organ of the European Union is the European Council, I think. So she's the head of the European Council or the European Commission. She came out and made a statement. She said that Europe is capable in so many ways to target American tech. They're even threatening to uh, sue Elon Musk for $2 billion or something like that in relations to the tariff war or the trade war or whatever the case is. So at the end of the day, this is what the United States of America is trying to do. It's trying to bully the Europeans, sending the clear message through China to the Europeans that look, whatever we did to you with the 20% on goods coming from Europe is child's play. That if you want to go further, we can do that. And I think they put 10% tariff on goods coming from. I need to stop this. On goods coming from. So this is what you need to understand. So the Americans are playing this game, particularly the Trump administration, to see what he can get from this conversation or what he can get from this negotiation. But before I proceed, I would want to explain something to you guys about what is going on. So you have a guy in the White House, largely erratic, taking this position of shaking up the system through his unpredictability. Although in some cases he has been far more measured or sensible, but he's so unorthodox, and this is why they cannot figure out, what he's about. He's very very difficult to figure out, and this is the case that he's making, sending a clear signal, not just to the Europeans, but to everybody around the world that Trump is now in power. And we need to take note. So let's look at some, other updates as well as we continue with this conversation. And by the way, I talked about Iran earlier. and what the Iranians intend to do in relations to what America is saying. The US said, well, we're going to bomb you if you don't come to the negotiation table. So while they are talking about negotiations, they are backing that or shoring that up with deployment of military assets to the Middle East, sending in heavy, weaponry to the Middle East to use that as a tool, basically as a stick to back up the carrot. So they are, on one hand, they said, well, we are interested in negotiations and conversation, but if you're not willing to do that, we can go the other route. So this is the position that America is taking in relations to Iran. And before I continue, guys, I want to play you guys a video and this is from the Prime Minister of Israel. So the Prime Minister of Israel visited. I'm trying to see whether I can download this. So the Prime Minister of Israel visited the United States of America. After he went to Hungary, he visited Budapest, and there was a lot of international outcry that there's a warrant of arrest on the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu. So how come he's able to go to Budapest in Hungary without being arrested? And we heard that before that, the the Hungarian government have decided to withdraw from the International Criminal Court, which is laughable because it seems to me that the ICC, or the International Criminal Court as they call it, is only targeting countries in Africa. Their goal is only to target countries in Africa. So this is a sad situation, and we continue to see this every time. It's easy for them to pinpoint. If I show you, and by the way, I'm going to show you what the ICC have been doing in Africa. The fact that they're only targeting countries in Africa and they are unwilling to do that to other countries, the European countries, they cannot do that to America, they cannot do that to any country in the European Union. So they're targeting countries that they believe are weak. Some Eastern European, Russia, inducting leaders from Sudan and Cameroon and Nigeria and so on and so forth. All of this is the position that the West is taking, and we know the ICC is domicile, or the headquarters is in Den Haag in the Netherlands. So I'm going to share my screen with you in a second. But before that, if you're just joining and you're seeing this video for the first time, don't forget to join the team, subscribe to my channel, like the page, leave comments if you have questions in relations to this conversation. Feel free to leave a comment as we proceed. It's very important. When I see your comments, it's more or less like a guide for me to. Yeah, I needed it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chloe. Thank you so much. I see you guys. If you're just joining, you're welcome. Make sure you join the team, subscribe to the page, and join the conversation by leaving a comment. It's easy when you leave a comment. I can pick it up and talk about it. But before then, like I said, I want us to look at the situation with Iran. Israel have made it very clear that they want the Libyan situation, or the Libyan style in Iran, which is that the US and the Europeans will go into Iran, on the invitation, or that the Iranians will accept willy-nilly, that the Europeans will walk into Iran, go to their nuclear facilities, blow it up, and then lift sanctions on Iran or whatever they're talking about, and then there will be no war. But if that doesn't work and the Iranians are trying to drag it out through negotiations and conversations, that Israel will do what it needs to do. That is what Israel is saying. And this is why the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, have gone to Washington, hoping that the Americans can help him out, and so on and so forth. So, like I said, if you're just joining, you're welcome. So I'm going to share my screen in a second. I'm going to show like a presentation. Thank you so much, guys. If you're just, like I said, if you're just joining, you're welcome. If you're seeing the video for the first time, feel free to interact with the video, and the conversation is very important, okay? Feel free to interact with the conversation by leaving a comment. Welcome, Morgan. So it is imperative from the Iraqi experience. It's the same thing they did to Iraq. Inspection team led by Hans Blix, clearly verifying that Iraq have weapons of mass destruction. And what happened? Shortly afterwards, the Americans went in. What they do is that they go in to verify, to check what you have and what you don't have, to check your radar system, to check your capability to fight back. And once they are able to ascertain what you have, because they will go in and require or demand to go to different sites to see what you have, your ballistic missiles program, and so on and so forth. And after they've done that, they'll say, well, okay, now we can go in. And this is what they do. So don't think that if these guys just walk
אני
in
מסיים
and
עכשיו
say,
ביקור
oh,
שני
well,
בארצות הברית תוך חודשיים, ביקור חם מאוד עם
don't
ידידי
believe
הנשיא
guys
דונלד
that if they're
טראמפ.
going. So, by the way, I'm going
יכולתם
to show you
להתרשם
guys this video in a second for
מהקרבה
you guys.
הגדולה והידידות הגדולה בינינו,
So this is
והיא באה
Prime
לידי
Minister
ביטוי
of Israel.
בנושאים שדיברנו. קודם
I'm
כל
going
איראן,
to play this. Just
אנחנו
give me a
מסכימים
second.
שלאיראן
I'm going to loop
לא
the
יהיה
video, okay?
נשק גרעיני.
So this is the
זה
Prime
יכול
Minister
לעשות
of
בהסכם,
Israel
אבל רק
talking
אם
about,
ההסכם זה הסכם
the
נוסח
Prime
לוב,
Minister of Israel talking about
שנכנסים,
that they
מפוצצים את
need
המתקנים, מפרקים את כל
um,
המכשורים,
the Libyan
בפיקוח
experience
אמריקני,
in
בביצוע אמריקני.
that they need the Libyan experience
אפשרות
or the
שנייה,
Libyan
שזה לא יהיה.
system in
שסתם
Iran.
יגררו את השיחות,
Basically, and you know
ואז האופציה היא צבאית.
what the
כולם
Americans and
מבינים
the
את זה,
Europeans
אז
did in
כך
Libya.
דנו
They
בעניין.
went in,
אני מסיים עכשיו
destroyed
ביקור שני בארצות
all
הברית
the
תוך
equipments and
חודשיים,
the
ביקור חם מאוד
nuclear
עם
research
ידידי
program
הנשיא
that
דונלד
Gaddafi
טראמפ.
had paid for and they were
יכולתם
doing at that
להתרשם
time.
מהקרבה
Destroyed
הגדולה
everything, and
והידידות
shortly
הגדולה
after,
בינינו,
less than 2
והיא באה
decades, they
לידי
went
ביטוי
into Libya and
בנושאים
removed them. If he
שדיברנו.
had
קודם כל איראן,
those weapons, they wouldn't
אנחנו
have gone
מסכימים
in. So let's
שלאיראן
listen, guys.
לא יהיה נשק גרעיני. זה יכול להיעשות בהסכם, אבל רק אם ההסכם הזה הוא הסכם נוסח לוב, שנכנסים, מפוצצים את המתקנים, מפרקים את כל המכשורים, בפיקוח אמריקני, בביצוע אמריקני, זה טוב. אפשרות שנייה, שזה לא יהיה. שהם סתם יגררו את השיחות, ואז האופציה היא צבאית. כולם מבינים את זה, על כך דנו באריכות. אני מסיים עכשיו ביקור שני בארצות הברית תוך חודשיים, ביקור חם מאוד עם ידידי הנשיא דונלד טראמפ. יכולתם להתרשם מהקרבה הגדולה והידידות הגדולה בינינו, והיא באה לידי ביטוי בנושאים שדיברנו. קודם כל איראן. אנחנו מסכימים שלאיראן לא יהיה נשק גרעיני. זה יכול להיעשות בהסכם, אבל רק אם ההסכם הזה הוא הסכם נוסח לוב, שנכנסים, מפוצצים את המתקנים, מפרקים את כל המכשורים, בפיקוח אמריקני, בביצוע אמריקני, זה טוב. אפשרות שנייה, שזה לא יהיה. שהם סתם יגררו את השיחות, ואז האופציה היא צבאית. כולם מבינים את זה, על כך דנו באריכות. אני מסיים עכשיו ביקור שני בארצות הברית תוך חודשיים, ביקור חם מאוד עם ידידי הנשיא דונלד טראמפ. יכולתם להתרשם מהקרבה הגדולה והידידות הגדולה בינינו, והיא באה לידי ביטוי בנושאים שדיברנו. קודם
So I urge you guys to watch the video. So this is the Prime Minister of Israel saying that after his visit to the United States of America, that he met with Trump and he had good working relationship with Trump or whatever, and that after doing that, you know, he, he told the Americans that there must be some sort of negotiations, concrete negotiations with the Iranians, and that there must be a Libyan-style demolition of the nuclear research and development facilities in Iran, that they must follow the Libyan model and destroy that. And I'm sitting here looking at it and I'm saying, hang on a second. The Israelis are asking America to repeat the Libyan system in Iran. Don't forget they did exactly the same thing in Iraq. They went in, like I said earlier, remember the UN inspection team that was led by Hans Blix. There was different statements and inspection done by the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is the IAEA, and other agencies have gone to Iraq, and there was no weapons, there was no WMD. And what happened? America went in afterwards. Now, the only reason they went in to Iraq is the fact that Iraq did not have nuclear weapons. If Iraq had those weapons, they wouldn't have gone in. I mean, look at North Korea today. Nobody is disturbing them. Nobody is disturbing these guys. Tell me, who's disturbing North Korea? Absolutely none. So if, we have the similar situation where Iraq did not have it, Syria did not have it, Afghanistan did not have it, Libya gave up their own, and nobody is attacking them. Pakistan have it, India has it, North Korea has it, and the North Koreans are bragging. They say we have it, and when it starts, we are going to target Guam. The North Koreans gave the Americans the coordinates. I want you guys to get it clearly, right? The North Koreans are giving the Americans a clear designation and target, are giving them the coordinates of where they want to hit. They say we are going to hit Guam, we are going to hit Seoul, we are going to hit Okinawa, we are going to target American mainland and target your big cities like Los Angeles, New York. We're going to hit them there in the center of the market so that everybody can live in peace. This is what the North Koreans are saying. The North Koreans are not playing around. And you know what? Everybody's leaving them alone. And I blame Iran for this because Iran is dragging this out. Iran is dragging this too long. And they are playing around and playing diplomacy. They want to be politically correct. At the point, they say the Khamenei gave a fatwa that it is haram, that you're not supposed to have nuclear. What sort of nonsense? And this is why they have put themselves in this position today. These Europeans do not like people that are uncertain. They want people that can tell them to their face to take a walk. Get the fuck out. Pardon my French. This is what these guys want. They want you to look into their face and tell them to take a walk. The Israelis are not playing. They don't want people to that is going to. They don't want anybody that is going to pussyfoot around. Iran should make it very clear that they want to have it and they want to point it directly at Tel Aviv. And when you do that, only when you do that, they will stop disturbing you. Only when you do that. So, I mean, the level of political correctness that I get, and I understand people want to be politically correct, they don't want to be misconstrued, they don't want to be taken out of context. And deep down in them, they are saying something, but they don't want to say it. So, for the purpose of political correctness, you have to use certain terms and epithets and so on and so forth. We are done with that. What is the problem? Iran wants to have it. Let them have it. The Saudis want to have it. Let them have it. Everybody should have it so that we can stop all this madness. Do you think that if African countries have it, these guys should have AFRICOM and they will be coming to our continent every day and demanding for concession? Absolutely not. So we are tired of this nonsense. Enough with the political correctness. The Americans, the Europeans, and all their allies that claim to be Western and European do not want somebody that is going to mess around and not straightforward. And this is exactly what Iran is doing. Certainty. Be certain. Say, I want to have it, and my intention is to hit Haifa. Just say it like that to them so they can understand. The moment you say that, oh, these guys are crazy, and they will leave you alone. But if you're going to be lying every day, say, oh, we want to have it, but no, no, no. There's a fatwa from Sistani or from Khamenei that prevents us from having this because it's against, our religion and so on and so forth. Nobody is going to respect you. Why are you dragging it on and giving the others so much oxygen to get involved in it and prevent and stall it? Get the Russians in. The Russians did it in Korea in a short space of time. So today, if we have any kind of major escalation on the 38 parallel in Korea, America will be moving heaven and earth to stop it because they know if it goes out of control, they can't defend South Korea. Seoul is going to melt, right? The North have it. The South probably have tactical ones that the Americans gave them in uh, in Busan and the military base in Okinawa. But the point I'm making is that it creates a level of deterrence. It creates a balance of terror. It creates a balance of power. Okay? And this balance of power is what will prevent escalation and conflict and chaos. This is the reason why the Europeans are not going to go. That they say the ambition is to take Moscow and decapitate the government in Moscow. The Europeans are not going to do that. But the Europeans intend to do that to Syria, and they did it to Syria. Why? Because Syria did not have what it takes to fend them off. The Syrians do not have what it takes to create the balance of power, to create the balance in terms of deterrence. At the end of the day, it is about certainty. Look at what the Germans said in the lead up to Operation Barbarossa on the 22nd of June 1941. They said, no, 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 because there were telegraph messages, there were leaked messages that the military high command of the Soviet Union was passing along to Stalin, and the top military commanders like Zhukov, Vasilevsky, Timoshenko told Stalin, oh, these guys are coming. We have leaked information coming from them that they are coming to attack. And Stalin was adamant, hesitant. He said, that the Soviet Union mobilizing at that time would create a situation of provocatia, that it to provoke and anger the Germans. But the Germans made it very clear that we will be coming. We are coming to the so we are coming to attack Russia on the 22nd of June. They gave them a date, and this is what the Europeans do best. They tell you exactly what they want to do, and they will do it. So this is Bibi saying it out loud what have been discussed behind closed doors. These guys are the same. These are the same Europeans in power. The Europeans they are the same Europeans in power in Tel Aviv, in London, in Berlin, in Brussels, in Amsterdam, in Washington, D.C. The Europeans are in charge. These are the same European tribes. I don't know what you are fooled by. They come in different shades, but these are the same people that attack themselves in Europe, hiding under the guise of different religions. For Schmittler himself, he claimed to be a Nordic pagan, or followed the Nordic, Nordic paganism. But a lot of people around him, Rudolf Hess, the leader of the Einsatzgruppen, Reinhard Heinrich, Himmler, most of these guys were all Christians, and some of them were Catholics. And they claim to don't like the other religions. So at the end of the day, these are the same Europeans. These are the same European cousins that are creating chaos and fermenting trouble around the world. And this is the question I'm asking people: what is wrong with Iran having this? And the Israelis and some of them I talk to will tell me, yeah, because the regime is Islamic. They'll tell me the regime is Islamic, is barbaric, it's not civilized. This is the mindset, this is the mentality of the Europeans. So they are telling you that these other guys are not civilized. They are not like us. Look at their skin. They are not like us. Look at these guys. Look at the what you call raising hair. Somebody like me, I'm not civilized. You know, I'm a caveman from the dark ages. I'm not as civilized and polished as the guys in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, because the ones in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, they believe that they are far more civilized, and they take it a step further, that they are ordained by God. And when it gets to the realm of being ordained by God, you understand what they're saying. I want you guys to understand this. And this is the segue. This is the introduction. This is the way and manner that they start before they so that they humanize you. They make you feel less. So this is based on the idea of Übermensch and Untermensch. For those of you that are students of World War One and World War Two, the ideological basis of the National Socialist Party was Übermensch, the higher man or the superior man, which derives from the ideology of Friedrich Nietzsche. But Nietzsche was saying that in relations to the theory of elitism, or because Nietzsche himself was an existentialist, and he talked about the ability of the elites, and that the masses were more like the herd, that anywhere you push them to, that's what they go to. These guys have not changed exactly. These are the same people today in power in Brussels, and they know how to deal with each other. And we are getting involved. And again, the problem with the globals are very tribalistic, and it's easy to divide and conquer. It's easy for them to. A friend of mine is talking about France. I know these people very well, like I know my hand. They live here. They're here with me. I live here with them, and some of my cousins in the north are kicking their ass, and some of them are throwing them out, and we see clearly that they are running away. The Russians brought in a few mercenaries to Central Africa. The French packed their bags and ran away in the night. The same thing happened in Niger and in Burkina Faso and in Mali. We know these people, they are not as tough. I mean, if you hit them, they run away. But they will size you, see what you have, then decide whether or not they can hit you. But the moment they see anything that is superior or of equal measure to what they have, they pack their bags and run away in the night. Oh, man. So let's go back to the topic of Israel saying, well, the Iranians cannot have it. Why can't the Iranians have it? Because they are not civilized. They are not democratic. So the Israelis are saying, look at us. We are Western, democratic, and we are chosen by God. So this is what the Israelis are saying. I want to repeat that one more time. The Israelis are saying we are Western, democratic, civilized, and ordained by God. These are the four cardinal points. These are the four major arguments of the Israelis: democratic, Western, civilized, and ordained by God. And you can go back to Europe during the Industrial Revolution in Europe, prior to the Industrial Revolution in Europe, and the period of feudalism in Europe. So the king or the monarch was believed to be ordained by God. So if the king is a wicked king or queen and punishing the people, it is not the fault of the king. It is the fault of the people because they have sinned against God and that God has sent a wicked king or queen to punish them. Do you understand? If you understand, I want you to leave one in the comments so I know that you guys are following what we're saying. So this is the same argument, or this is the same pattern that these European tribes have brought now to, to the Middle East and in Africa and everywhere. At the end of the day, it's a crazy experience for us to continue to see what these Europeans are doing, and the idea that they are saying they are civilized. They keep telling you the Iranians. They say the Iranians are barbaric. They are riding donkeys. I hear that every day. They say that the Iranians and the Arabs and the Africans are riding on horsebacks and donkeys and having swords. So they are not as smart and forward thinking and civilized as the other side. Well, the other side have F-16, they have the stealth bombers, they have the latest of technology. And this is why they have been chosen by God specially, and only them can have the nukes. The Iranians, they believe, are not civilized. They are stuck back in the dark ages. Let me tell you a story about Pakistan for those of you that want to know. Yeah, because I'm a student of geopolitics and history, so yeah, I have quite a bit of knowledge on Pakistan and India, and some of you have interacted with me on that basis. My Here's the thing, right? I Most times I just watch and listen to the conversation, but I know quite a bit about most of these topics, and I know the historical and antecedent. I've spent the best part of my 20 years, you know. So add that to my teenage years or to my childhood days, acquainting myself with the kind of information that I have today, that I want to have, and I still see, development in terms of what I need to know. And I encourage young people around the world. The world is changing. The idea of having a particular template that these guys are reading from. So when Netanyahu comes and speaks in that video after the section he had with Trump, he came out on video. He said that he's discussed with his American partners, and the plan is to implement the Libyan model in Iran. That's what Bibi said. I didn't say that. But again, as a student of history, and as somebody that have seen it, that I've heard of it, that I've read it, and I've studied it, and I've immersed myself in the whole in understanding the whole Western probe and their patterns, I know exactly what he's saying. He is saying we will send in the inspections team, we will go there and blow up your research uh, um, systems and development and technological, you know, um, whatever related to the nuclear program. We will blow it up, and then 5 years after, we come and decapitate the regime. This is what they are saying. Okay, so everybody's trying to come. Yeah, what's up? Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't accept it because I was kind of giving a section, but I don't mind you staying there. But yeah, oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, I came to the other side and I told the stream how I like you so much. Yeah, yeah, it's great. Okay. Oh, fantastic. Oh, it sounds good. So I'm gonna continue. Uh, all right. So at the end of the day, this is what they're saying. They're saying that we are civilized, meaning, i.e., the Israelis are saying they are civilized. And those of you that have conversations with them every day, you know what I'm saying. They are insisting that because they are civilized, that because they are advanced, they are Western. And I want you guys to understand this idea of democracy. I truly believe that democracy in its current form, liberal, Western, capitalist democracy, as it is practiced and as it is encouraged in the global South, creates penury, it creates disparity in terms of the gulf between the rich and the poor. And I truly believe that in its practice, as it is today, particularly pushed on the countries in the global south, is satanic, it is evil, and it is created by a group of elites to benefit themselves. For instance, if you're asking a country like Nigeria to practice your system, that's not the only thing. You are asking them to have these regular and periodic elections, creates room for for instability. It creates room for high level of volatility, and you don't have consistency in terms of government policies and program. It stagnates development. There's a whole lot of baggages that come with it, and people will say, well, the upside to it is that you have free and fair elections, you don't have dictatorship, you have the judiciary, and so on and so forth. But it takes away the stability, and it's easy for the elites, the capitalist elites, to penetrate the global south. And we've seen it clearly with the role of their non-governmental organizations and so on and so forth. What are these NGOs doing in Africa? What are they doing in the global south? When the sanctions hit Russia, the first thing they did was to kick out some of these NGOs. And we are seeing clearly now that there's a current government in Washington, D.C., that is saying clearly that these NGOs, they're not going to accept them and they kick them out. Okay? Because these NGOs are not serving the best interest of those countries that they are going to, and they are also swindling their own government. This is what I want you guys to understand. So let's stay on the conversation about Iran because this is really interesting. This is really interesting. Let's continue to tap and share, guys. Well, somebody's saying they are nothing but civilized. They are anything but civilized. Yeah, well, that's what they're saying. They're saying because they are civilized, they have a right to do anything they want. And yeah, it is the same. The patterns are the same. In Iraq, they went in, supervised, inspected what the Iraqis had, and they went and reported back to Washington and they gave them the papers and said, oh, hang on, these guys don't have anything. So we're not going to be afraid of them using mustard gas or sarin gas or whatever on us or anybody. Therefore, let's go in and smoke out Saddam and Uday, his son, and Qusay. Because these were the two pillars of Saddam when he was in power, and he has like some top leaders. Um, Taha Yassin Ramadan, Tariq Aziz, by the way, who was a Christian. I think he was one of the deputy vice president. So this whole idea of that he was a sectarianist, he was an Islamist and so on and so forth were not true. Saddam was more of a secularist. He promoted women in high places, they joined the police and so on and so forth. But America stepped in, destroyed the whole system, and debathified. There was a process they called debathification that happened in Iraq. So they disbanded the army, the police, and everything, and they wanted to start from scratch. And that created big problem in Iraq because most of the people that were serving in the Saddam forces largely, they did not fight. Most of them deserted. Some of them were being owed their salaries because there was a lot of sanctions. So they're trying to repeat the same thing in Iran because, listen, they say we want to repeat the Libyan style in Iran. First, they come in, encourage you to give up your nuclear ambitions and program, then level something against you and impose sanctions on you. Of course, Iran is already under sanction. Do you think the Iranians will be able to fight America today or Israel today if they don't have the threat of the X factor, which is the nukes? That's what the Israelis are scared of because they don't even know whether Iran already have it. And this is why they are afraid of going in there. There's no other threat. The Iranian air defense system is not the best. I would argue that they don't have the best of technology. But what the Israelis and the Americans are wary of is not just the volatility that it will create around the Persian Gulf. It's also the level of uncertainty. They are not sure what they have. And I'm encouraging Iran. Iran have wasted so much time on this. They've wasted the past 10, 15, 41 years thereabout talking about development and research. And then tomorrow they'll say, oh, there was a fatwa from Khamenei that they're no longer interested in developing the nuclear weapons, that there was a fatwa from Khamenei that it was against Islam or something like that. Well, the Americans are listening, the Israelis are listening. They do not want uncertainty. These people do not appreciate and respect somebody they feel is weak. If they believe that you are weak, that you are lazy and slow, they're not going to respect you. And I gave you guys the example of the French. Look at what the French did. You know, the French were um, hovering around in Africa because these corrupt African leaders that are overweight can do nothing to them. These corrupt African leaders that are subservient and to and enslaved to this their masters in Paris cannot do shit. Well, the Russians came into Central Africa, under the invitation of Faustin Ashon Todera, or even before him was Michel Jutodia and Catherine Samba-Panza. And what happened? Operation Sangaris folded up. The G5 Sahel disbanded. The United Nations French-led Operation MINUSCA rolled back. And the French packed their bags and ran away in the night. Exactly. Why? Because a few dozen Russian bandits and mercenaries came to Bangui. The same thing in Mali. I visited Mali in 2022 because in 2021 there was an incident that happened in a place called Ogosagu, and later in Sobanada. So these two places are in the place called Mopti, and Mopti is around the Mopti is in the center of Mali. It's around the area of the Banyankara escarpment. It's a beautiful place if you want to learn about the history of Africa. For those of you that are interested in the Dogon culture and language, somebody can write it in the comment, right? Dogon culture. Dogon is spelled as Dogon. So you need to, and this is one aspect you can learn from me, right? This is my field. My bread and butter. I live and sleep here every day, so I know this area very, very well. So you can, if you want to know about the Dogon, there are special people. They are not many. I think I don't know, maybe less than 2 million, or I'm not even sure they are up to that. But they live around the majority of them live around the Banyankara escarpment because they are mostly farmers and hunters, and they live in that area because the center of Mali, somewhere somewhat grassland, and if you go to the north, like in Gao and Kidal and Timbuktu, and it's mostly arid. So during the situation in Mopti that I talked about, Ogosagu, the Fulanis were, it's a conflict between the Fulanis, who are nomadic people and herders, and the farmers, who are mostly the Dogon people. So basically, the Fulanis were accused to have joined, groups like Mojao and Al Mohabitun, and they've gone to fight in the conflict in Libya. I'm still talking about the French. The French were at the center of the conflict in Libya, encouraged the British and the Americans to go and decapitate and bomb Gaddafi. And why were they able to remove Gaddafi? Because 10 or 15 years earlier, Gaddafi had agreed or signed up on an agreement to dismantle his nuclear program. It's exactly what the Israelis and the Americans are encouraging Iran to do now. But let's go to the story about Mali. So, the Fulanis and the Dogon fighting each other, and this goes back to half a millennia. They've been living together. So, like I said, the Fulanis are nomadic people, but the problem is because they have different traits, and because of desertification, the Fulanis are migrating downwards in search of greener pastures. So they go to the farms of the Dogon people and eat the crops, and the Dogons as well are accused of targeting and rustling their cattle. So they're fighting each other and taking each other out. And what happened? The French have intervened and exacerbated the situation by arming both groups. So exactly the same pattern that they did with the Seleka and the Anti-Balaka in Central African Republic, they're repeating the same pattern in Mali. They're repeating the same pattern in Niger between the Tuareg, the Tubu, and the Hausa in the south. They're doing the same thing in Burkina Faso between the Bambara and the Arabai tribes in the in the, I think, in the eastern or western part of Burkina Faso. So all of this is going on simultaneously in Africa. So they are playing the game of divide and conquer, and it's not dissimilar to what the Israelis are playing in the Middle East. The Israelis are setting up the Christians against the Druze, against the Alawite. They're all fighting each other. And what happened? Israel is now in an advantageous position in Syria. And well, when he visited Trump, they're talking about the situation with Turkey. That Israel is going up and blowing up Turkish bases, setting up in Damascus, trying to give the Syrians air defense and something like that. So this is the situation, with the world. And if you follow these situations from one place to another, you will know the role of these Europeans. And you will not be surprised when they are coming and telling you, oh, well, we're trying to see how we can negotiate and stuff. Why are you trying to stop the Iranians from having the nukes? Because you have the nukes. Well, the Israelis are saying they are civilized, therefore they are not going to use it. And every day you hear Israelis saying, if there's any threat to the state of Israel, we are going to invoke the Samson option. This is what they're saying. I'm not saying that. It's not coming from me. This is the same trick. It is the same pattern everywhere. And people are surprised that, an African boy, Christian, supposed to just conform and kowtow to the party line, accept these people as the children of God. Is challenging the Western narrative. No, I'm not against God or against the children of God. I'm against Europeans that are masquerading as some other tribe. This is what I'm against. The people in Jerusalem today, in power in Jerusalem, are Europeans. I'm sorry, this is the fact. It's not me. It is the reality. It is the hard fact, and I want you guys to understand that. Anyways, if you're watching this from anywhere, if you're joining the stream from anywhere, make sure you leave a comment, share this to different pages if you can. Like the live stream, and leave a comment. If you have questions for me, I would respond to those questions accordingly. And let's keep the chat going.